Ladies and gentlemen, the Warbosses of the Apocalypse.
Live. Hey! What's the crack? How are we all keeping? Welcome to another episode of the Warboss Show. You are seeing the beautiful Dim, who's on the other side.
Mud, because I'm worthless.
People pay good money to be covered in mud. Depends where it comes from. And, of course, myself, Skarpia, or Dwayne, if you know me from Battletech. What's the crack? How are we all keeping? How are we all on this fine Sunday, which is Father's Day? Which, funnily enough, I'm not a father, so I'm like, I don't usually pay attention to this sort of thing, you know what I mean? I didn't notice until I went down to the pub to me mates to get some 3D printed Battletech terrain off of them. I was like, holy shit, it's super busy here. And I was like, oh yes, it's Father's Day, isn't it? But that's been my day so far. Has been pretty busy getting stuff together, organising my desk again, clearing all the 40k orcs off that were in progress and halfway through, and it's been repopulated by mechs now, as it should be. You know yourself, and getting ready, already thinking ahead. I've been keeping myself busy the past few weeks. We'll get into that in a sec. Tim, what have you been up to? What hobby are you up to, mate? How are you?
Very, very precious little. Have you got time for your Lord and Savior
Battle?
Dystopian Wars?
Oh, Dystopian Wars. Now, hold on. You're playing Dystopian Wars. I'm actually playing Leviathans, which is a Catalyst Games game, which is like airship combat stuff. But I haven't played Dystopian Wars. How does Dystopian Wars play for you?
Pretty good. It's I've only watched it be played. I haven't played the game myself yet. I've starting to understand the rules. Pretty simple game actually. Lots of dice. I don't know anything about this. I always have a love-hate relationship with dice. Maybe it just comes from years of playing various games where dice were not optimally done. Hello, Warhammer Fantasy, how you doing? Like, where the entirety of your strategy pinned on like a handful of bloody dice rolls.
I'm going to interject really quickly here. I have dodged a bullet. I was getting the glaze out, and I nearly, instead of using my glaze medium, I nearly used crackle medium as my medium for mixing with the paints.
that would be a mistake. You've got to remember that, you know, from listen to Uncle Night Shift and varnish before every layer of paint. if you've got no fucking life, and you know your time isn't precious. And my time has become increasingly precious because now I work on a hospital ward, so I have very little time. So I haven't really done all that much hobby. I'm catching up on a couple of old things that I've been doing. I'm probably going to do some more work on my Dystopian War stuff. But I do have a little bit of 40k that's languishing around, and maybe a little bit of AOS/fantasy stuff. Big things coming.
Sweet.
Yeah. I'm planning to finally get off my arse this week and get the Hobbygit channel going again.
Nice.
There's going to be a mix of stuff. I am going to do some GW based stuff. I don't know if we want to talk about that today. Well, I guess we'll see what happens.
We'll see what way the wind takes us. I am actually painting an orc boy here. I want to try my hand at non-metallic metals for me Battletech stuff. So I'm got. Oh, for the love of Christ! Sorry, I thought I muted me phone. Give me a second.
It's fine. Nobody's watching. We've got nobody at the moment. That might change.
I hate this phone.
Where the heck is my blue tack at? I might have to use one of those silly GW insertable plug things.
Yeah, I have a work phone that I have still not learned how to mute properly. Apologies. By Jesus. The joys of it. As I was saying, non-metallic metal, that's what I'm going for.
Nice.
That's what I'd like to learn how to do. I'm enjoying that. I'm enjoying trying new techniques. I think the Storm Boys sort of helped in that regard. Trying
Just
to
galvanized your interests into.
Well, yeah, it's like, yeah, galvanized me interested in trying to push the envelope a bit. You know what I mean? Instead of just staying safe. One of the guys who does the camo specs online, Augustine, he actually painted up some of my mechs because I was at UK Games Expo, not the weekend gone, but the weekend before. So what's it, nearly 2 weekends ago now? I've been very busy the past couple of weeks.
Yeah, you've just been going from event to event promoting a certain large metal vehicle battle game.
Yeah. But with Battletech and
another one.
Yeah, to another one. So the airship games, I've been keeping myself busy, so I have. So, yeah. So you actually painted up some miniatures, some of my miniatures they needed for the diorama that were left short of miniatures. So I brought some along, and they got painted up. So I have some in front of me that have gotten some non-metallic metal paint jobs done on them. And I think that's what's kind of spurred me on, is seeing it, and I'm like, oh, I want to give that a bash. So I bought some AK paints. I couldn't get the non-metallic metal paint set, but I bought the paints that were in it. I had some already. I'm finding that I'm starting to do that thing you keep doing if you don't keep a list of what paints you have, where you end up buying doubles. It's like, oh, I need this paint. It's like, oh, no, I've already got two of that. Rock Lobster's here. G'day. G'day, Rock Lobster. What's the crack with you?
How's it going, bud?
What's the story? Ultimately, my goal is to try my non-metallic metals on this quick draw, which is coming out in the new Kickstarter. It is not out yet. There you go. How swanky is that? I've only had it about a year and I'm finally getting paint on it. So, yeah. How's that for an exclusive? That will be shipping soon enough, the quick draw. But yeah, I'm trying on a...
I was going to say, is that in the new mercenary sets?
It is in the new mercenary Kickstarter. Look at you, Jesus.
Well, it's because I'm waiting for my fucking BattleTech crack to turn up.
Well, yeah, I think we all are at this stage.
With you in the community privileges.
Yeah. Look at me grafting and getting somewhere. God forbid, like.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, loads of fun. You want to see some of the dioramas that the guys got up to at UK Games Expo. Shout out to my friend Arthur. Did some absolutely sweet dioramas. They did a combination of like 3D printing stuff and... I
was going to say, I saw some pictures of them, some bits and pieces here and there. Look pretty fun.
Oh, yeah. Some of the lads from the Leeds Wargaming Club as well, they help out, and they... the lads from Leeds Wargaming Club did a whole big diorama, and it was pretty sweet looking. They 3D printed a mech scale dropship, which is pretty substantial. And there was loads of bits and pieces, yeah. So, but they had a whole diorama that was pretty cool. I mean, if you're at UK Games Expo, you couldn't miss it if you went anywhere near the booth. In fact, people were using it as a point of reference for UK Games Expo as to where they were. It was like the big dropship, like it was big enough. It was the size of a small child at the end of a table. You couldn't miss it, like. Like, you know, we're talking, I don't know, a Warhound Titan standing on top of a Warlord Titan, big, sort of, you know what I mean? Substantial. Pretty substantial. Sci-Fi's here. Did you show pics of that diorama on the Modelling for Advantage live stream the other day? I did. I showed pics of the diorama. If I was really smart and I had known we were going to be talking about it, I'd have images lined up now as well. But sure, Jesus, what can you do? Yeah, no, it was good crack. It was definitely worth checking out. I'd go back again next year. I think we're already making plans for next year. But it was good fun. And then last weekend just gone, I went to a Battletech tournament and did really well. I came in third place, which is really good. I enjoyed myself. It was good crack. My friend who won the tournament, one of the other lads from Dublin, he was the guy who beat me in my match. So I played 4 matches and won 3. So I don't feel too bad. You know what I mean? The only guy who beat me is the guy who won the tournament, you know?
Nice.
So overall, yeah, that was good crack as well. Like, so, yeah, I've just been keeping busy, you know, yourself. And seeing what I want to do, you know.
Hang on, you mean to tell me that you went to a tournament and you didn't wear a dart shirt and you won?
Yes.
And you didn't find a cheater and say, I'm not going to name them, but I'm going to show their face on camera? I mean,
No, it's a very different community. It's Battletech's pretty chill, actually. Even on the competitive scene, it's pretty chill. We've got a good community. It's fun, but it's European spanning as well, so it's not just Ireland. So we have... So the way it works in Ireland is there's like a European format, so it's pre-picked. There'll be like 6 pairings, and you get to pick one for each round, and there's 4 rounds. And, this is your new NID, is it?
Yeah, it's the... Oh, I can't even remember what the bloody thing's called.
Neurolictor or something, was it?
Neurolictor.
How do I remember?
Yeah, why do you remember?
I don't know. I think it's because I picked up the pamphlet for it and I looked at the stat line and I was like, I literally don't know what this stat line means anymore. Like the game system changing so much. It's like this is no longer like second nature to me, which I find funny.
Because they think that symbols can replace the names of stats and also sometimes measurements.
Oh, that was Kill Team, wasn't it? The whole circle, triangle, square malarkey.
Yeah.
I mean, if there was no other language in the book, I could understand it for not having to do reprints language-wise.
Well, certainly after reading the new Kill Team rules, I certainly felt that I had circle fucks to give over it. I
didn't bother, man. When they started doing re-releases of Kill Team, that was when I sort of decided to part ways with Kill Team. I was like, I'm not buying a whole new rule set again. And
there's been more editions of Kill Team in 5 years than there's probably been editions of D&D. I mean, 5 years is cutting it a bit thin. It's probably more like 10. I'm just old, but.
Jay Hugh was asking, what are you working on?
So many times. Yeah. I've got a snaky NID army.
He's asking, are you looting the NID or building a different army?
It's for my snake NID army. Everything in the army is a snake. So the core troops are Zoanthropes. Not Zoanthropes. I can't even remember the names of all the units. Hey,
the little guys.
Raveners.
Oh, the snaky
Raveners
ones.
and Rippers. I've got Ripper Swarms and Raveners.
So you're building a team there, me? Is that what you're saying?
It's all I ever do. Yeah, we did turn up to like an event expecting that everybody else was going to do things.
Was going to do teamed armies. Well, I think some did more than others, and some
didn't.
Some their team was very
what's good?
loose
what's good in the meta,
to say the least.
I just naming no names.
You don't need to name names. People already know.
Yeah.
It's like, where's your flyer, mate? No, it doesn't fit in this team. I'm like, yeah, sure. It doesn't.
It doesn't fit in this.
It just happens to be terrible, does it? All right, fair enough. Sure. What can you do?
Yeah, I've got some. I do have some of them von Ryan Lictors. It's mentioned in the
von Ryan Lictors. What
the they're tiny lictors that were in the Leviathan box set. And I want to use them as actual lictors. Because look at this, right? I just want to... This Neurothrope came with... where's that fucking abomination of plastic gone?
Did it come with spare bits?
Came with one of these bases, a 50mm, right?
Right.
That's a 40mm base. I haven't done anything to the bottom of it other than remove the legs.
Remember this whole thing you have where you need to be speaking directly into the microphone first to hear you?
Oh yeah, fuck off! I keep forgetting about that. So this came with a 50mm. That's a 40mm. I've done nothing to it other than remove the legs, and the legs would have been about there anyway, right?
Yeah.
Notice how that profile fits perfectly within the area of the 40mm base.
So what are you thinking? You were thinking originally that's what was due to happen, like it was supposed
No, the GW have a hard on about increasing the base size of every miniature in the fucking game.
I mean, that's
and
nothing new.
Nothing more egregious than other than boys, which I don't think should be on 32s.
Mine are still on
you know,
25s. I'm not changing.
You can fight me. You can fight me. You're wrong.
I am in my Swiss changing.
Sisters of Battle being on 32s is particularly egregious because it's
Are
just
they?
like, why is a toughness
I
free
thought they
thing
had like
on
a weird
on
base
32?
size. I thought they had like 28.5 or something or something.
Some of them do.
Something odd.
The Repentia do. They're on 28.5s. My logic is that if you're going to put sisters on bigger than 28mm, which you might want to do, they're wearing power armor. Okay, fine. 28.5s right there, and you've got it. I mean, at least when the boys were updated, the 28.5 didn't exist because they got rebased before Warcry existed, which, as I'm pretty sure that's the point at which it comes in.
But they're 28.5s.
Well, yeah, because what happens is you've got the various warbands, and the warband troop quality is based on the size of the base. The bigger the base, the better the thing. So the leader or the hard case that's going to be doing a lot of the scrapping will be on a 40mm, and your solid troops are on like 32s, and like some of your medium stuff that's probably ranged will be on 28.5s, and then your shite will be on 25s.
I mean, that's not a bad system. I always thought if they did a toughness system, like the tougher it is, correlate with like the base size or something. But
if you're gonna, do a thing where you just have a ridiculous amount of bases you don't need, that is a good use for it. I mean, probably an easier solution is to just get your sculptors to get those legs to, sit at like what should we say, realistic angles, and then maybe you wouldn't need such a big base. But Jean-Claude Van Damme got to straddle those two rocks, don't he?
the trucks, I remember that. That was bleeding hilarious.
Oh, I thought it was rocks. You're right, it is trucks, isn't it?
Yeah, it's two Volvos. That's the whole point of the ad. Is like
I thought it was two rocks on.
No, it's two trucks. It's supposed to show like the stability of the new drive system. And it's to Enya, I think, isn't it?
I'm mixing it up with a Coors beer advert he also did.
Oh, yeah. Well, fair play to him. He did hear himself out now to make bank.
Yeah.
Got to shake your money maker. Keith saying, hey, what's the crack? Rock Lobster, you're saying, I sprayed up an eBay rescue Morkonaut last night. Used keyboard cleaning goop to cover what was already painted, and that I wanted to keep messy, but does the job. Nice. Jay Hugh saying, rebasing 60 assault on Blackreach boys' bases was a pain in the ass for me. Fair play to you, Jay. All my Ork boys are still on 25mm, and I will not be painting them. Or will not be changing them for love nor money.
Well,
they will.
Should we talk about this a little bit, Scar? I mean, we probably don't want to go into it too much. No, but I too will have Orks on 25mm bases.
Look at you, rebel, love it.
And you know why?
Because you're a nonconformist?
Well, yes, but also, that's it for me on Modern 40k, I'm afraid.
You've had enough? You've had your
fill?
Had
my fill, yeah. I'll probably play 11th when it comes out in 2 weeks because I like to tell people who keep telling me that the current edition is the best edition ever that they can't say that because they haven't played all of them. But I have. And even though I've basically not played very many of the modern games, it is fun to throw it at them because I have played all the editions. And I don't know which one I would say was the best one. I mean, the one I loved the most was third, but it was flawed. Fourth fixed a lot of problems, but it was
flaws, though. I think we have our favorites.
Yeah. Fourth was a tournament patch for tournament players. The first time they indulged them, and indulging them a lot is a mistake. that they frequently make. Look at the modern game. I'd argue that's happening. Oh, I've put way too much green stuff on here. But yeah, I'm going to be playing more older editions, and one of the advantages is a lot of the ideas I've got for the new sort of stuff that I want to do, I'll still be able to make it work in modern 40k, because the fact of the matter is that all I'm ever going to be doing if I play the odd game of 10th, it's going to be for this channel, most likely, if it's ever at all. Or it's going to be with friends who don't give a shit that I haven't got the right basis. And if anybody tells me that it would be a deal breaker for them, well, that's a very great way to find out that they're not worth playing.
Yeah, I get you. Yeah, you can gauge whether you're gonna have fun with someone or not if they starting picking at your army that you've sort of.
Because I am going to
built.
I'm going to expand my rebels, and they will work as a sort of beast snagger army. If I want to play 10th, and I might play the odd game of 10th. But I'm not intending to. I'm not going to go out of my way to buy the Codex. I've got no intention of buying that book.
Do you know what? I find myself in the weird position where I agree with you. This is the first time where I'm not bothered to buy the Ork Codex.
I don't think I bought the 9th one either.
I did.
Which was wise, because it would never have been used.
I did, and I used it once. You know what I mean? But I think that's the issue is... I think 40k is now is the type of game where you constantly have to be playing it. Do you know what I mean? Like, you have to invest yourself.
Yeah, it really... It's like a lot of tournament-focused games. It's reminded me an awful lot of War Machine, which is a game I should never have played.
Play like you got a pair. What was it, rule 4, page 4 or 5 or something there?
You what?
What page was it in War Machine where it was like...
Oh, page 5.
Page 5, yeah.
The page 5.
The page 5.
I would say a lot of rulebooks have their ethos on page 5, and War Machine tried to make a thing out of it, and I think Private Press tried to imply like they're the only ones that did that. And I mean, GW were doing that long before they were. But the page 5 ethos was, you should be trying to crush your opponent and stuff like this. And I'm just like, why did I get into this game? The mechanics for the first edition were really solid. That was why. It was a much better designed game than 40k was at the time. And it didn't have Matt Ward writing for it, which was also a big plus. Kind of like the flag of Switzerland. Anyway, the current game does remind me a lot of that, of like the core rules are pretty straightforward, and it's got that bloat that War Machine had, where yes, you know a lot of the core rules, and yes, you've got something that resembles universal special rules, but there's so few of them, and they're not used as frequently as you might expect. And the vast majority of the time, you're having to learn these new rules that are attached to various new units that you're basically having to find out by having your arse handed to you.
What's changed?
Yeah, so you keep playing.
Yeah.
And then GW adds in the extra bit of spice, which is the which War Machine had as well, which is just like a frequent amount of FAQs, which you get when you've got tensions built around a game where there is constant churn of meta. And the one thing that like War Machine had got right, I think, of that kind of model for game design was not having books for the factions. You just bought the mages you wanted to use, the rules came with them, and you played. Whereas GW is still stuck to the Codex idea. And when I really started to lose interest in War Machine was when they tried to do the same, where they had their own sort of books that you had to buy. And you got weird gimmicks like, they made you need the book by making it that, right, okay, so if you take this particular model, this unlocks these options in the book, and basically army theming. And you look at all of this stuff that War Machine did, And bear in mind that War Machine has declined, and it's one of the least popular tabletop games that exists. I'm just putting that out there.
They've gone to a
But if you
3D printing model or something, have they?
yeah. I'm not entirely surprised because their miniature production never really got particularly good. Ever. GW have got their arse, have handed them their arse on miniature quality for a long time, and I think that's probably the thing that keeps GW from falling down the spiral that War Machine did on the whole, is because their miniature kits are still really good, even though they are now getting ludicrously priced, and that GW might be pricing themselves out of their own business. There's some of the hikes that we got recently.
Oh yeah, there was a price hike, wasn't there?
Delusional. Like, in an industry where people can get cheap minis, like, you shouldn't be charging this kind of money, because all you're doing is going, so what's the point? And so all you've really got is you've got the people who are stuck in the tournament scene. They're the people who are going to be spending the money. And anybody casual, why would they bother? Why would they bother at all? Like, you might even be turning certain casual people away who might buy the odd kit, and they'll probably think, nah. Like, I desperately want to get back to making big themed armies, and all I'm really doing is buying the odd miniature that attracts me and that I can get at a decent discount. Because I've always wanted to do a London themed Skaven army, and notwithstanding that they discontinued the Storm Vermin, no idea when this happened, that really annoyed me. I didn't realise they discontinued them. I mean, I expect they're going to make a comeback in AOS, because we'll talk about those Skaven models, because I think they're quite cool. And I think that Skaven gun, that's a mech gun in the making, so that's worth chatting about at some point. But I want to make a Skaven London-themed army, and with the exception of getting the half of the new box set that's coming out with a friend, because I think that's about 120. So if I can get it a discount, that's about maybe 100. So that's 50 quid to get a whole load of Skaven in there, all of which I like, apart from the engineer. But I want to make this themed army where I convert all of them into London theme. So I want to have like Beefeater style Storm Vermin. I mean, I'm being very ambitious. I'm not sure I'll pull it off and make it look really good, but I might be able to make it look halfway good.
Oh, well, aim high and see how it goes.
But the problem I've got is I look at the prices of all the miniatures and get very discouraged. Very discouraged. No least because I'm not really going to play the games all that much. I'm certainly not going to play AOS. I think it's terrible. And I can't believe it's already on its 4th edition, and it's still got fucking priority by the sounds of it. So, yeah. So, I mean, when I'm just doing it for the sake of hobby, it probably should be a bit cheaper for me. Yeah. We've got quite a few comments. Should we have a look at those?
Yeah, go on, you fire away. See what we have.
Do you guys have any ideas for J. Hugh is saying... Oh, hang on. Did we read out Keith's? Got the 10th Codex the other day. Probably never actually use it, but it does go nicely with the other ones. That's how they get you. But they are display pieces, because they're not going to be useful in game terms, because they're probably already redundant. There's probably 7 pages of FAQ that are going, ignore this bit, ignore this bit, ignore this bit. Here's all the errata.
As a veteran of the hobby, I need to give this tidbit of information. If you're collecting codexes, don't buy them new. Wait until the next one comes out, because the second-hand value of codexes, once they're no longer the current rule set, plummets. They fall way down. Like, you might be able to get a codex for a £5 or 10 quid.
Well, I think, especially these ones, I think these ones will fall off a lot, because I don't actually think they're all that good.
Well, it's always been the case. It's always been the case. Like, you're paying top dollar for books, and they just don't retain their value. You know what I mean?
The older ones do. Like, if I want to get like a second Dead one, I mean, granted, there's less of them in the wild these days, but if I want to get like a second Dead Sisters of Battle Codex, I could potentially pay twice as much as I would pay for a current one.
Yeah.
And do you know which one I'd rather have?
The
It's
old
no
ones,
fucking contest. I'd have the Sisters of Battle one, even though I will never play Sisters again. Like, I mean, for one thing, it's got Dose Randaya's Reign of Blood in it, which is one of the best bits of lore GW ever did. But it's actually quite a good book, and it looks really cool, and it's full of John Blanchard. As opposed to the new one that's full of pictures of the miniatures that are painted okay.
Well,
And
this is why.
lore that will be terrible because it's written by GW's current writers who are not good.
But that's
then
why they do pictures instead of art, because it's substantially cheaper. Like,
Yeah.
instead
But
of-
yeah, I personally think, I mean, we probably want to do a whole episode of this at some point, but I think the Codex is dead. I really do think that it should die. Granted, I have been playing a lot of Drop Zone Commander recently, but Drop Zone Commander and X-Wing are like the war games that basically all I've been playing recently, and soon also Dystopian Wars. And in all of those cases, I can get all of the rules online. I can get army builders online. They don't bother selling you books. They just keep making nice miniatures, and they update the rules every now and then. And
I mean, the
keep
books
an
you
eye
can
on
buy
the-
for BattleTech are more sort of like lore books. You don't have to. There isn't really army books as such. You know, you'll get faction books that have bits of lore in them, but
Yeah. I mean, I will say that War Machine, BattleTech has the advantage that it's all humans,
yeah.
so they can get around some of the issues that might plague 40k, because 40k has a lot of variation. But yeah, I don't know.
I mean, some of the lore books are. I got to see the Universe, BattleTech Universe book, because Randall Bills was doing his reunification tour, so I got to meet up with him and check out the book. They were at Essen, but they were also at the tournament in Limerick, and that's just like a lore book. That's just a background lore book, and it'll probably be about 50 or 60 euros. So probably about 50, 55 pounds, 60 pounds in and around there. And the quality of it is, it's great. It's absolutely amazing. Like there was a limited version of it, the pre-center version on Kickstarter, and that was like 200 euros, and I was like, oof, that's a bit steep. But now that I've seen the bog standard version, I'm like, I may have missed out here. You know?
I do think that this is what GW should do. I think GW should move to lore books and like explaining factions away. And anybody like me who's like, I know what's going to be in an Ork Codex in terms of lore. There's going to be 3 or 4 pages devoted to gas and Armageddon. There's going to be a timeline. The timeline's going to have some gags. We all know what the gags are. We know that one of them is going to involve a Warboss killing himself in the past to get a second version of his gun, because that's funny. Lol. And we know there's going to be some snippets of lore about the various clans. We know there's probably going to be, let's face it, if they have any balls, putting back the resonance stuff and the xenological article that was written by, I can't even remember his name now. That's embarrassing. Normally, Lucas Anzion. Haha, I got there. And it's been a while since I've read Ork Lore, guys. I'm sorry. But I used to know it inside out. But like all of that should be there and presented, and it shouldn't be changed. Just leave it as it is, and then the newbies can buy it and they'll read it and they'll understand all the stuff that, let's face it, we guys know, because we've read the lore that has barely changed in the last 6 codexes. Grand. And they could even snip in some shit that we haven't had since War of the Orcs. Like they could talk about what an Orc society's laid out, like how Orcs find their ways around, because all of that can work with current lore. And they just need to change a few things, like the weird reproduction stuff. All of the reproduction stuff was just kind of like a weird sort of semi-anecdote. So in reality, you can just kind of ignore that, because it's almost what the Orcs think happens. When in reality, it's probably because they just don't understand that spores are there. Because the sporing fluff is from Rogue Trader anyway. It's not actually new. It wasn't invented for Gorkamorka. It was already there. All Andy Chambers did is go, no, really. The spores produce everything. They make the squigs, they make the snotlings, they make the Gretchen,
Well, I
they
don't
make
think
the
that
orcs.
was Chambers, or I think that was what's his name, Ian, was it? Who was the? Who wrote? I know him. I've talked to him. I've met him. He was a LARPer as well. Jesus. It's not Jesus. Me brain.
A GW person.
Yeah, he's a GW. He did the Dark Elder Codex in 3rd edition. I'll find it.
You're not thinking of Gav, are you? Please don't say Please don't say it's Gav's idea.
No, it's not. It's not Gav Thorpe. It was the lore. Cruelty. No. My brain isn't working. Ian. It's definitely Ian. They brought him in to help with some of the lore because he had like a bachelor's degree, so he was able to make the scientific stuff sound.
Oh, that would explain quite a lot actually, because the scientific stuff sounds.
Yeah. That was his thing. I think he was.
Interesting. Okay, I didn't know that. That's cool.
He was doing
It's not like Ian Strickland or something like that, is it?
No, maybe. It's a
I
second.
don't know where I'm getting Strickland from. It's somewhere in my head.
Oh.
I think I know who you're on about because I think he was involved in White Dwarf, right?
I think so.
Oh God!
Bet you the comment section is going. It's this guy. It's this guy.
I've got Lavender in my head as well. Even Lavender.
Lavender.
Yeah, I don't know where I've got that fucking name from. Fucking hell. That's probably. Oh, is that not the fucking actor from Dad's Army? That's terrible. Why have I got that in there? Oh, I used to be really good on all of these names, and now they're all fucking disappearing. Must be getting old or something. Time to break out the whiskey store.
Are you still cracking away at that writer's tears?
I am. It's fucking lovely. Bring some more of that with you.
Nice.
It's
Glad you're enjoying
absolutely.
it. I gave Kaiser a
delicious.
bottle as well. I was like, here's a gift. There you go.
It's
Enjoy.
fucking lovely. I have poured it into the glass that I have been drinking coffee from, but I don't give a shit.
It does.
It's
it
almost
does,
Irish whiskey. Fine.
Your Irish coffee. What's that? There's a drop of coffee in there, but it's mostly whiskey.
Yeah. I was going to say that. That's a true Irish
So
whiskey.
if I said Ian Lavender's from Dad's Army.
Yeah, I thought I was. Oh God.
Oh, I love
Ian
it.
Pitstock. Ian Pitstock. It fucking well better be.
Used to write for White Dwarf for a journal. Maybe. I don't know. My brain's not working at the moment.
I knew there was a name in there that was putting the face to. He was quite a young face back in those days. Tash, ponytail, very baby faced. Right. But yeah, that's that bit of lore, and just stick it all together and just sell it as a faction book. You don't have to put any rules in there at all. Like, if you're gonna do anything, I think I've mentioned this I've got a horrible feeling I've mentioned this on a Warboss episode before, but like, put some campaign shit in there for the narrative players. Give us a fucking bone, but it's not needed for the tournament players, so it doesn't need to be anything that they have a must-have buy.
Give them
The fans
give
will
them a
buy it
campaign
anyway.
map. Is what you should do.
Yeah.
A decent campaign map. Right, I'm gonna turn off the effects I have in my background to show you.
Oh, here we go.
I know it's the big wall.
I know what's coming up.
Big-
I know what's coming up.
Big green screen wall. But over here on these walls here, these are all maps that have come with source books for BattleTech. This is a grid map to fight on Terra. This is if you're dropping in, you have maps here. If you're this is a big hex map up here for playing like large scale. We're taking over the inner sphere. You could do that for 40k, man, and people will love it. And there's another map on the wall as well for playing campaigns. For I
hope that yellow territory isn't some filthy clan territory. It'll be inner sphere stuff, is it?
Fedcom Civil War. So they're all from different eras, but that's a campaign map.
Yeah.
That's all systems with names on them. And then
I mean, GW's done it before.
Jump systems.
Remember?
But they've never done it to this detail, though. This is the thing that does me nothing. Like, they've never done it to that. I've always wanted them to do it to that detail. I think the closest they came was like 4th edition when they did City Fight, and they did really good stuff then. But I found like that the campaign stuff really sort of dropped off. Because I was really big into campaigns. That was me jam. I used to buy any campaign book that they did. I was all over it. So I bought like Planet Strike, their city fights. They did like Spearhead, all these different expansions to the game. Apocalypse as well, back before it was folded into the core game, and then unfolded out of the core game in a separate game, which never works for a Games Workshop product. If it's not part of the core 40k game, it nearly always flops.
Yeah.
Unless it's just Space Marines fighting Space Marines.
Well, I will say, one of the best books that GW ever made was a very random collection of things, but I never regretted buying it, and I used a lot of the ideas in it. It was for fantasy, and it was called the General's Handbook. It had a campaign map in it.
Nice.
I mean, the campaign map was quite basic bitch, but it was like territories, and you could use it. And then they'd brainstormed ideas for, right, all the factions, if you want, can have their own rules for moving around the map.
Well, that's the old Mighty Empires. The old Mighty Empires.
Oh yeah,
was
it's
a board
very
game.
heavily based on Mighty Empires.
Well,
yeah.
you have a copy of that downstairs, and that's basically a self-contained board game. It's basically like Rome Total War as a board game, but back in the 80s for fantasy. And then so it's a case of, here, these are the bits on the board. You can use the combat system to resolve combat, or hey ho, you actually want to fight this battle with your mates? Well, get your Warhammer Fantasy Army and then have a punt. You know what I mean? Like, that's what it needs, man. I reckon if they did something like that for 40k now, if they did like a board game, right, where they put some effort into it, where it's a self-contained game that you could do that, where you can have the pieces just sort of auto-resolve the combat, or you could get it so that each one of the combats you could play out on the tabletop. I mean, I think that would sell. Like, that sort of thing wouldn't hit the shelves. Like, it would sell out. Well, for me, anyway. Like, I love the idea of that stuff. And I think that's why I like Battletech so much, because a lot of that is facilitated for it. Do you know what I mean? A lot of the campaign play is facilitated for, and I think that's why I like it. But it's also weird because I play competitively Battletech. I play Battletech. I play tournaments, and the odd time I win one, or I do well enough in them.
Anyway, let's move on from the army book shit, because we're just going to rant about codexes all fucking night, and there's loads of comments. So let's move on. J. Hugh, do you have any ideas for looting the Necrons from Indomitus and Nid's Leviathan books? I mean, yeah, loads. I mean, with the Nid stuff, well, you've got a big fuck off Carnifex in there. That's a great start for a Death Dread. Like, you could do all sorts of shit with that. Do it as Feral Orcs, stick a Howder on it, and have like some spike rammed into the back of his head, and have like a Savage Orc or something on us, steering it, just moving the stick around, or the huge bone around, whatever it is. You could do it as more high tech with bionics and shit. You could have a grot with remote control. Loads of ideas. Some of the smaller stuff might be more difficult to make use of. I mean, those weird sort of gun things. I can't remember how many of them you get, but they're an odd thing, because I wanted to, probably still will, but I'm planning to make a third era Biovores from them. I'm not entirely sure how I'm going to do it yet, but I definitely think that you can kind of take the servitor principle of, you could just kind of get rid of that gun, keep the whole shoulder-mounted arm thing, and just put a big stupid metal gun on it, and make it look like it's lost all will. And Termagants could be hard to orcify, but you could just use them as steeds and have like fucking grots riding them.
Oh, it's not what I'd do with them. I'd give them the lobotomy treatment and just have a runt hair there with a remote control. You could do that. You could do a lot of their
you could run them as grots.
half
Absolutely.
their cranium, like do them as grots and have half their cranium, and they're all, maybe half their claws have been like broken from when they were initially killed and stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where like a pain boy and a runt haired have I've managed to patch them back together into a shambling, half undead
You could
horde.
also take some of the Killa looking stuff and give them a different kind of lobotomy where you have like Frankenstein graft squig heads onto them
Jesus.
and use them as like glorified attack squigs or like just a scary unit.
I just had a visual of like a Necron warrior with like his head missing, and then just this like super aggressive face blighter squig.
I'm not sure what you could necessarily do with the Neuro Titan.
I don't, like that. That's a new model to me. I don't even know.
It's a big floating brain. That's all you need to really know.
Right. Okay.
It's like a big. It's like a big HQ zoanthrope. It actually looks quite cool. I think they were probably meaning it to resemble the Doom of Malantai that they never made a model
I remember
for.
that. That was like 50th, wasn't it? The Doom of Malantai.
Yeah. That was also the Doom of the hobby in many ways because that was the start of the Chapter House lawsuit.
Yeah, that was
Featured quite heavily.
pre-chapter approved lawsuit.
That's where that's the bin that the converting hobby got thrown into almost. And they've been legislating against it quite a lot since and making kits more and more monopause.
We don't lament that at all.
No, I didn't bring that up at all for any reason. For the Indomitus, the Necron stuff, I think it's even easier because like tripods are cool. Use the tripods to make spider dreads.
Sweet.
You just take the legs and you graft orc stuff on top of it. It'll look fucking cool. Necron Warriors wise, I'm not entirely sure, but like honestly, my temptation would be to use the Necron Warriors as the basis for Tin Boys.
That's what I was thinking. Like, yeah.
Have a look at some old Tin Boy models, and basically they're a caricature of other races. So if you take the basic skeletal form, you could absolutely fuck around with that and give them new heads and give them new arms very easily, and you get real stupid guns, and you make them kind of more like give them something that looks a little bit power clawy. You don't necessarily have to. You could keep them with double-handed guns and stuff, but you could make an awful lot of those units into Tin Boy stuff. I can't really remember anything else that's in it. I'm trying to remember what other sort of Necron shit was in there. All of the tripod, all of the quadrupedal stuff, just take the Necron bit off the top. Or at least make it look like it's fucking dead and it's just stuck there. And I mean, like, you could do like weird shit because like a load of Necron players go, "Oh, that's not fluffy. They would have disappeared," and you just go, "Well, orcs no teleporter technology and force field technology. Behold the little force field dude I've stuck on the back of this miniature. That force field prevents them from being teleported back."
If you get a load of them orc skulls that you can get, and just you could put them as the head, and then just have like a guitar cable and stuff like that, like wired into the back of them, so you could have it be
see if you can get a skull kit second hand, because I do not endorse anyone buying that kit new. It was worth it when it was a tenner, and then it jumped up about £5 every time they upped up the prices, and I think it's ridiculous. It's just a pack of fucking skulls. And you can get 3D printed skulls that are just as nice for a fraction of the price. Try and get a second hand if you can get it. It is a good kit, which is what depresses me about it. I'm just glad that I bought enough of them when they were affordable that I don't need to buy any more ever again. Because I would definitely not pay those prices and thus not use those. But yeah, there's some ideas for you. Hope that was useful. Size asking, do historical wargames chase the meta? Quite often, yes. I haven't played a lot of historical gamers. I know a fair chunk of them. To be honest, a lot of them tend to care more about is it historically accurate. Is my experience of them, and it's kind of it's just how it always is. There's some of them are pricks and a lot of them are nice. I wouldn't know enough about like historical warfare because nobody would ever play any period that I would want to replicate in a tabletop fashion. I do know there's people at the local historical club, which I do occasionally go to or used to go to, where I know one of them was doing Chariot Wars, but that would be about the only historical setting I would want to do. And to be honest, Chariot Wars is probably a very, very, very boring period for a war game. Because it's just chariots and shitty infantry, and that's basically it. Like, your core troops have slings. Enjoy that. They're throwing rocks at each other. And there's 10,000 of them to paint. Enjoy that. It doesn't sound like fun, does it?
Sounds ideal.
Yeah. War Machine just got bought out. Not surprised, because, like, I think it's quite obvious that the people in charge of it long since stopped giving a shit. So I'm surprised they haven't sorted it out before, to be honest. Got the new Big Mech the other day. Figured out how to make the weapon arms interchangeable. This is Keith. Robster mentioned about the War Machine. I'm terrible at reading these comments out. And the whiskey's not helping. Got the new Big Mech. Figured out how to make the arms interchangeable. Thanks, all community. Have to make the tool arms interchangeable, and then I can paint. Lovely. You enjoy that miniature. Not saying anything. I don't need to at this point. I said it all, haven't I? Right, let's move on. Gitman. Wah. Yeah, cool. Sci-fi. Scared and bowler hats. I like it, dim. Yeah. I'm thinking clan rats will be bobbies, like London bobbies with silly hats. Storm vermin, beef eaters, as I've said, and then gutter runners, street urchins, and chimney sweeps, and silly stuff like that. Deathmaster Snitch. Oh my god, I'm forgetting names of stuff. I'm getting depressed about this. As a sort of Jack the Ripper Fagin hybrid. Isambard Kingdom Brunel, but as a rat engineer that's based loosely on Ikit Claw. And then probably the best idea I had is that instead of a Vermin Lord, I'm going to have a Rat King. So, like, you know, the rat with the tied together hands. I'm going to try and sculpt that from scratch, which is not going to work, but I'm going to give it a go.
I do not envy you in the slightest on that endeavor.
Yeah. It'll be a test. Will be a test. It might end up that I do not even bother trying to do the faces, and I find some way to fit those on, and then I try and sculpt around it, which is probably what will happen. But I mean, considering a lot of it will probably be fur and a big fuck-off cape that sort of obscures the tails being joined together, but if you look behind, you can see the joined tails. I can do all of that to a reasonable degree, so that will look okay. I mean, fucking hell, the green stuff fur video is the only good video on my YouTube channel. All the other Warbosses disagree with me because they really like that fucking
Gargantuan Squiggoth. Yeah.
The Squiggoth review video. Oh, I regret doing it, and everybody else says it's really good. It shows you what I know about YouTube, doesn't it? Because it is easily my most successful video.
So I hate this video, but everyone else likes it.
Yeah, that's. I mean, are any of you surprised that this is what I think?
I mean, like, we had fun. I still have me little, like,
classic contrarian
super orc with his mohawk and his cape that I sculpted. That was good fun.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Super thin. Totally not how I do a cape in future. I was watching how Trish Carden did capes, or Monster Girl as she was known, and she actually starts with like tin brass, I think it is, as the armature, and gets pliers, like sheets of it, and then uses the same technique for doing dragon wings and stuff like that, where she'll shape it and then sculpt on top of it. And
that's fucking genius.
That is genius. It's brilliant. You want to see how she like sculpts fucking eagle wings and everything, like for hippogriffs and griffins and stuff.
Yeah, the understructure is definitely the key with green stuff. There's a lot of people trying to do everything in one go, and that won't work. You need to be able to support it. It's all well and good, like doing like a. I mean, I haven't done it well because I'm not rushed. I'm not in a hurry to paint it.
Remember, microphone, speak into.
And you can't see the detail here, but like it's a lot easier to press green stuff into solid plastic or solid metal and solid resin and do it that way because you've got the support you need. The second you try to do anything freestanding, don't. Put something underneath. And do it in stages. It's way easier. And also it will look better when you're done. You'll find quite often that the pros, they've just got a load of tricks. And the tricks are really good if you're like me and you don't really have any artistic talent, so you rely on the tricks to do everything. But if you're artistic as well, you can do both and make something way more amazing than I could make. So just learn the tricks, and then you're halfway there.
The tricks of the trade.
Yeah. I agree. Prices are absolutely out of control. Which is now me eyeing other companies that make orcs. Yeah, exactly. See, like they're just making the 3D print stuff more attractive, which I think is a real shame. Because at the end of the day, one of the things I've said about sort of the hobby the whole time is that we had a certain period of time where we were spoilt. Early days of 3D printing, especially. I mean, really, that should have created. I'm trying to think of what word I want. Change normally precedes it. I'm trying to think what it is. But we'll move on. And if I think of it, I'll say it after. But it should have changed the industry, and it hasn't. And GW's just kind of continued doing their stupid corporate bullshit that they continue to do. And as a result, they're just putting their business at threat because they're chasing the usual thing that corporations chase, which is infinite growth, which is totally a sane idea. But, we're not here to hear my opinions of capitalism. But it's just weird that we haven't seen at least maybe a steadying of the price rises. Because, yeah, sure, inflation's going up. Wages aren't. Do I want to throw a load of money at Games Workshop shit, or do I want to throw it at a game I like? Well, Games Workshop never gets my money now. Very occasionally, they're an impulse buy at a hobby store that I sometimes go to. And occasionally, if I can get 20% discount, I might buy a few things online for hobby projects that I've been having on the back burner of when I used to think about GW stuff a lot.
So do you make army lists anymore, or when you're buying, is it you have a project in mind, so there's a conversion you want to do?
I have a project in mind, then I will probably I used to make army lists, and then that would dictate to me how I do the thing. Whereas these days, because I've had so many years of being a long-suffering, aging old 40k player who knows that trying to conscientiously build to army lists is fucking pointless because they're going to invalidate you in an edition or two. So you might as well just build what the fuck you want and then find something that fits. It's a way less stressful way to work, and you have more freedom and artistic creation. And since then, I just kind of build what I want to build, and if I can't use it in the modern game, there's an older edition where it'll work, because my brain remembers all of the things that I used to be able to do. And also, that's part of the reason why I'm looking a lot at 3rd edition at the moment, because, say I've got a big creature that I want to make. Well, there's the creature creator rules, there's the creature design rules. Maybe I want to make an outlandish tank, or a really weird looted wagon to add to my orc range. Well, I've got VDR for that. All of that is entirely flexible because I've got a rule set that lets me build what I want to build rather than relying on a company to give me the stability. Now, I will say that any of you that buy official natures that are monopores, you could be looking at things that get invalidated anyway. So it's not just a case of me it being my fault because I convert stuff. It both happens, I'm afraid.
I suppose that's the advantage of
Stick
playing
around a few editions.
And older editions is that it's bookended. You don't have to worry about stuff becoming invalid because you've already got it. But then, it's a double-edged sword. There's not going to be any new stuff coming out for it, but then it's also not going to be changing anymore. So
the thing is because I know how the sausage of 3rd edition was made, I can add new things. Because so much of the way that 40k is written these days, I think, in some ways, to obfuscate fan rules. It's harder to write rules for stuff. I've got ideas. I mean, it's not that hard. I've still got like most of the rules that I'm planning for Tin Boys more or less sorted. I just need to kind of have a look at a couple of data sheets of Orc stuff to make sure that I'm not making things unfairly priced, and make sure the weapon profiles are on par, and that I've got all of the changes right and stuff like that.
I've just found the irony of my painting a Warhammer mech while on the show.
Well, it's about
I said, look, I'm painting Warhammer, lads. Just
it's a
just one
much
of them.
more interesting Warhammer, to be honest. Like, I just really learned that mech. Let's have a look. Gitman, the Gatling gun on wheels. Yeah, that's a perfect looking mech gun. It is, isn't it? So should we? That's a good segue. Thanks, Jude. Thanks to Gitman. Yeah, that is going to be a great mech gun. You could do so much with that, and like I quite like using Skaven stuff for my Rebel Grots quite often. So I think Rebel Grot players, especially, you're well served with Skaven units, because if any of it's wooden, you don't really need to get rid of the wood because it's Grots. Like they'll use whatever's to hand really, and they won't have all of the access to all of the extra shit that a mech might. And I generally, when I do my Rebel Grot stuff, I like to make them look lower tech even than Orcs, because I think that fits better with what I think. Like, Gretchen are resourceful builders, so they're good at building things, but they don't have the technological know-how. They have some of it. They definitely have more than they're given credit for, which I find quite irritating. I remember there's one person on the forum who said that Gretchen being able to fix an immobilized result on a 6 is the most ridiculous concept in 40k, and I've remembered that in my head for the longest time.
You holding a grudge against someone making a comment you didn't agree with years ago on a forum that no longer exists. That doesn't sound like you at all.
I know, right? But that's the thing, though. It's just.
Have you frozen? Have you blue screened? Is that what it is?
Yeah, I've blue screened entirely. But it doesn't make any sense because Gretchen build everything.
Yeah, they do. And Gretchen are the builders. Like, that's the whole.
And they can
if you read the lore, the older lore especially, it really goes into how the Orcs are lazy bastards, and the Gretchen are the underclass, and the sporing system, how Squigs come first, and then Gretchen, and then eventually Orcs. So there's a whole ecosystem to support them.
Gretchen have the only way around dangerous terrain tests in the entirety of 3rd edition, because Wazdaka Gutsmech's little grot assistant Fix-It could get off the bike and push. People forget about this, right? It's very silly. What Scar said about codexes is true, except for Here We Go and freebooters. Well, see, the thing is freebooters and Here We Go, like, I mean, they are still basically codexes, but
freebooters is Here We Go. Yeah,
Here We Go is
Here
as
We
well.
Go is, but Warag the Orcs is probably the only purely sort of like source book that we have.
While the Orcs is what I would want the new one to be like.
Yeah, that'd
be
obviously
cool. A little bit updated, because I mean some of the
the
Orc lore is
a
bit twee, and it wouldn't work with the current 40k. It wouldn't.
Yeah.
Although a lot more of it still fits than a lot of people on the internet like to say. Largely because they're full of shit. But we'll skip past that. But like, that's kind of what I would want in a book. Here We Go and Freebooters are still really good, though, and they're still part source book because they still have loads of lore in it. Here We Go is the first reference to sporing. It's in there. That's the first time it's ever mentioned. And it does confine itself, I think, to just squigs and snortlings. But Gretchen are weird. 3rd edition and Gorkamorka, because the lore that they have comes from exactly the same source. It's the same written piece. There's just a shorter version of it in the Orc Codex that was a bit longer in the Gorkamorka one, which I'm kind of pleased about, because they cut out the bit about Orcs having a 30-year lifespan, because it never made any sense to me.
Yeah, but I thought the Orcs having a 30-year lifespan was part of the Gorka Morka environment, like.
Well, no, I don't think it has anything to do with the Gorkamorka environment because I don't think Lucas Anzion was looking at Angelus particularly when he did that. But I think the main thing about it that I would want to say is that I think it's a victim of an awful lot of what you see in anything that develops like a culture of fandom around it, where something that is used offhandedly as an average and a metaphor, and more crucially, like just like an average life expectancy for your average orc, has been pumped up to being a de facto, no, they get to 30, they die. When in reality, I think it's more of just an estimate of how long an orc is likely to live.
But I don't even think it's just an estimate. I think you have to take into account that lore back then was written from the point of view of being in universe, which is something that BattleTech does. So the thing is, like, just because you're reading a report that someone's saying doesn't mean that the individual who's writing the report is 100% correct. You know what I mean?
True.
They only have the facts at hand at the time. The problem you have then is that fan bases tend not to catch on to that. They just take a lot of stuff literally. Well, it says this in the book, so that means that is what it is. It's like, no. You've missed the total presentation of this being an imperial report by a researcher or an inquisitor or an acolyte. You know what I mean? They're not fully filled in. You've missed the context. Like, I think that's what's happened in a lot of cases, especially in the older lore. And I think that's probably why they don't really present it that way as much. It's
a shame we didn't get like a War of the Orcs thing back, though, because one of the distinct advantages that we have as a community in terms of talking about 40k is we've got the advantage of both distinctions, because War of the Orcs is written from the Orc perspective. And a lot of the modern lore, 40k lore, is written from the Imperial perspective. And it seems pretty clear to me that there are blind spots in both perspectives. The Imperium knows a bit more about orcs than orcs do. But orcs also know a lot more that they're not letting on that the Imperium are ignorant of, and that an awful lot of the information that has come out has been somewhat tainted.
Yeah.
I will say that a lot of people tend to pour entire scorn on the Anzion articles, and the one thing I want to point out is that there's meta comment about Anzion's writings within the writing of 40k. There's a bit of it in the prelude to it on the actual article itself, where an Imperial guy is basically saying that, trying to imply that Anzion's worked hard on it, but he's clearly full of shit and, forgetting that he's serving the Imperium, and he's deluded himself into thinking the Orcs are great when it's clearly only the Imperium are good and stuff like that. And then there's another scientist in the Xenology Black Library book who is like kind of mocking Anzion for his tendency to name everything after himself, but is saying that his science is pretty good and he's onto a lot of it. So I would say that, like, Anzion is looked down for the things that he said about orcs, so he's probably closer to the truth than an awful lot of orc players like to give him credit for. But obviously, I mean, yeah, it's all law. You can kind of do with it as you will. And as I like to point out to people, it's a fucking hobby. You can defy all of it. I like to talk about canon lore for what I like to call the path well traveled, which is like, this is the route the lore usually takes. This is the most logical route that I can see that combines all of the lore that I've read, which is most of it. Therefore, that seems like the most logical course of action. And then you go, does this work for me? Yes or no? And then you deviate where you want to or need to. And that's how you should do lore in this hobby, as far as I'm concerned. That's about the only sort of context I really have for why I think GW denying canon is a good thing, because at the end of the day, if they're doing it to kind of go, well, it's a hobby, you make it of it what you will. Yeah, I'm with you, G-Dubs, I'm with you. If it's more to excuse terrible writing processes and a lackluster attitude to quality control over pumping endless novels out, which is what it probably was more likely to be, less agreement. But I think we're in a good place with the lore for orcs, because we've got a nice mix of perspectives. and you should read War of the Orcs. Even if you think it's outdated, even if you think most of it's changed, you should still read it. Because it's useful. And also, it looks at things that 40k doesn't look at anymore. Like I already mentioned about society stuff. Like, literally, a bit of it talks about Orc fun fairs. You never find that in modern 40k.
Yeah.
And the fun fairs largely are basically white-knuckle rides. One of the most famous being like a fucked up carousel where it's just a spinning wheel that holds chains that are attached to orcs' necks, and they just spun around a lot, and they fucking love it, and they come back for more and more and more, and it gets them riled up and excited. You can have fun fairs in 40k. It's great. Like, that's why you read War of the Orcs, because it's a source book. It's a roleplay source book, so it gives you details that you wouldn't get from a codex. And that's partly why I think the codex should die, because the codex can't give you enough information, because it's got to get onto the army list sooner or later. So it's a limited resource. Whereas if you just go, hey, this is just a faction book, and it's got 10 pages of campaign stuff that's just optional for you to use, maybe 20 at a push, the rest of it can just be lore. And they can go into detail, and they can add new things if they want to, and it'll probably suck, but at least it's new.
I mean, the time of the codex being redundant is probably now. What with the data cards, I was impressed with the cards when we were doing the league. I liked that if you had the cards in front of you, you pretty much had everything you wanted. Now, I am aware that when they've released the codexes, that they haven't released the formations in the data cards as well. So it's like, this is your incentive to try and buy the codex.
Well,
but you can still get that online, like, you know what I mean? But,
I cynically predicted that, and oh, look, I'm right again. Funny. Well, I will say, right, I think the time for the codex being redundant was a long time ago.
Yeah.
And I think that I kind of point to this a lot, but like early 40k revamps, so 8th edition 40k and 1st edition AOS, gave a great concept that was a cool idea, and if they'd stuck with that, I probably would have been fine with buying faction books. And that is that you bought, well, we had the index, right? And AOS had the battle tomes, and they were faction-wide. So for Age of Sigmar, you went in and you could get everything that had the keyword death, everything that had the keyword chaos, everything that had the keyword destruction, or everything that had the keyword order, all in one book. And you didn't have special faction rules, but you did have all the different data slits. And because of the Grand Alliances in Age of Sigmar, you could literally combine anything with order with anything else and make an army from it. And you know what? That was really fucking cool, and they should have stuck with it, because it meant you had so many opportunities for theming. And because first edition Age of Sigmar was quite simplistic in rules terms, on the whole, it worked out all right. I mean, Age of Sigmar is a terribly flawed and I would say not very fun game, but it had a lot of promise, and that flexibility and freedom, like our local GW had a thriving hobby culture and came very close to outselling a London store. And this is in like the northeast of England, where there are less people, a lot less people. And that was entirely because we fully embraced the hobby opportunities that era offered. And it was the same in 8th as well, and late 7th, because there was just so much hobby going around. And when 8th edition hit, you had the index books. So it was like, oh, right, there's big factions, and I'm reading all of these rules, and it just inspired me all the time. And I was also seeing other factions that I probably normally wouldn't entertain, but I've got the rules in front of me because I bought a £10 book, and I've got the rules for 7 factions.
Yeah.
And we all bought them all. And everybody had the rules. If you're going to do, you have to buy a book, do fucking that. Don't do this shit where you go, well, here's 70 faction books over the space of 3 years. By the way, we've invalidated them. By the time they were out, I mean, there will be people who have bought codexes or who have bought battle tomes for Age of Sigmar and 40k who have quit. And the reason that they have quit is because 3 months after they bought that book, a new edition hit and their book was invalidated entirely. like, and they're doing this every time now, which is kind of funny because they used to do that every other edition back when we started, because you'd have a couple of editions. Like, just think about it. Like, Orc players, we bought the 3rd edition rulebook, and it was nearly 5th before we got our update. And then 4th edition came out, and it was nearly 7th before we got our next book. Like, we went a long fucking time. We went multiple editions with the same codex, and it still worked. You can shit on the 3rd edition rules all you like, but the edition could change, your codex still worked.
Yeah.
You know,
well, that's because the core of the rule set itself, like the stats and stuff.
Yeah, and also this we should point out, the books weren't hardback to increase the price, because that's the only reason they're hardback. And the other thing is that they were written well enough that they could last that long. And the other thing to point out is that, well, there was something that you could stick to, and that you would be bothered to stick to, because they didn't invalidate half the rules with FAQs, because they understood the rules well enough to know it would stand on its own 2 feet. And the other sort of aspect of it, which often kind of gets forgotten about, is that, like, well, also the editions lasted a decent amount of time. It wasn't like 2.5 fucking years; it was more like 5. So it was worth doing, and people stuck with them. Like, if you do codexes like that, if you design codexes with that kind of idea in mind, and you build them to last for a fair bit, and they last a fair bit, they're more better received. If you were going to do high turnover, and you were going to do simplified rule sets, then you still need to get rid of 90% of your rules, Games Workshop, because there is absolutely no point in them being there. Because at this point, the game's so fucking stripped down, there is absolutely no reason why 8 different rules that work more or less the same way and not just the same rule in the core rulebook. Why the fuck have you bothered? If you're getting people to buy a book, get them to buy a rulebook. Give them, like, 20 top A4 sheets that they need to print off to use their faction, or more likely read from their phone, because that's what the kids do these days. And hell, I do that with Drop Zone. But it's just like, I've printed off my Drop Zone Commander data cards, but I really, really wish that TT Combat sold data cards for Drop Zone. It's kind of good that they don't, because it does mean that they can update the rules mid-edition. So you just, if they change the rules and they make it clear which ones change, you just print off a new sheet and replace the old one. You're good to go. Suppose that works. And if you just download the latest PDF when you're playing, you're laughing. They could do more to make it easier to read and stuff, but I mean they're working with a fraction of GW's budget. GW could do all of this very easily. They won't, but they could do. And I think they should move to free rules, personally. I think this idea that we're paying for rules and matches at this point, especially when they're going to charge this amount for matches, is just comical. And what's going to end up happening is this: a whole load of the major games that I want to play are going to be played by more people, which, to be frank, is what I want at this point. I don't actually care if GW actually changes or not. I know it's a bit mean to say, but I don't give a shit.
I think you're right, though. I think it's gotten to the stage now where the miniatures are so expensive. There's no point in trying to milk people twice anymore, because they are churning so much that they are out of date by the time they hit print.
I like having printed off rules. I think that's good.
Yeah.
I think it's worth money. I think I'm happy to throw money at it. But I'm only happy to throw money at it if it's either A, written so well that it lasts without multiple ridiculous FAQs invalidate half the fucking book, or they're so simple that if there's some changes, it doesn't matter too much, and it keeps it cheap. Pick one of those. Ideally, just go with, hey, GW, just simplify the rules even more, and make them easier to play. There's a whole lot of people moving to one page, and I think that's kind of tragic.
To me. People keep saying try one-page rules.
But I think that's kind of tragic in a way, because that I think one page is a little too simple. I actually don't want GW to make a simplified rule set. I should put my cards on the table. I want more complicated. I want loads of rules. But most people ain't me, and I know that most people don't like that, especially these days.
Are they capable of it, though? I don't like the writers from when we were youngsters.
No,
aren't there anymore. I don't think they have the caliber of writer to pull off what we're looking for, really.
But here's the other irony, is that simplified rule sets require more skill to do well. And when you do a simplified rule set badly, it shows more frequently than if you do a semi-complex one.
I suppose because the less rules there are, the more heavily you lean on each individual rule. So the better,
There was a load of bullshit they got away with in 7 for the longest time because the game was so complex by that point that you had to be emotionally and physically invested in it so much to see the flaws, which is why it took so long for the churn to get rid of all of their customers to the point where they had to pretend to give a shit about you again to get you back. And, you know, in all of that time, they had to make some drastic changes, and I suppose they pivoted to the group that was always giving them the feedback rather than just disappearing. So it is partly our fault that the tournament scene is pandered to because they're the only people who bothered to talk to Games Workshop. But they were also the only people that GW bothered to make themselves available to. So, again, takes two to tango. But yeah.
Like, you've been tangoed! Bang!
Yeah. Yeah. Good slap in the cheeks. Anyway, let's have a look at more comments. Keith Gross saying, good point about the codexes, but I like to pretend I might actually play a game of 10th edition. I mean, I've played it. Honestly, not missing much. It's all right. I enjoyed it more than 9th, but that's a bit like saying that I would enjoy syphilis more than death. So, it's not saying much. But I say that, it's a bit mean. I think there's some mechanics in 10th that are very good. And I haven't said that in a long time. Like, Battle Shock is a really cool idea. And if they refine it a bit and add to it a bit, it's going to be fucking great. Watch them scrap it at the end of this edition. Because I suspect that because I like it. So I expect it to go away. Oh, shit. There we go, that's better. Neutral color. Mostly Zen's like, hey Tom, I need to get my my Freebooters cover rebound. It's torn. Yeah, that might be pricey. But I've got them all. Yeah, I have them as well. Freebooters is fucking hard to get. It's as rare as hen's teeth, especially these days.
Is it?
I bought one from a friend, so I got it at an affordable price. But it is really, really hard to get. It's the one that most people didn't buy. You can normally find copies of while the Orcs swishing around, but I think a lot of those did disappear because it's a fucking ring binder. It's not a book. It's terribly bound. Because it was like very early days of GW, really. Well, very early days of 40k, I should say. It's not very early days of GW. They'd been around a fair bit. But it wasn't a good book in terms of print quality. So if you can find someone who'll print off a better version, and they exist, get one of those copies, but get that book read. It's worth it. It's worth it if you can find a copy. Freebooters and Here We Go are negotiable, but if you're an Orc nut case, you'll want them, and they will be worth it because, well, for one thing, like every single one of Here We Go, Freebooters, and While the Orcs has great artwork in it, mostly done by Paul Bonner, and there's like lovely little lore snippet boxes, which are usually just about different kinds of squigs. There's a few that aren't squigs, but most of them are squigs, and they are so fucking cool. They're worth it alone, without even looking at the rest of the lore and the army books.
Types of squigs, yeah, it's fun.
It's so fucking good, and
I mean, we have those books, and if you're telling me they're this rare at this stage, it might be time to offload them. You know?
Oh, don't, man, you'll regret it. I mean, even not being a super fan of the current direction of things, I think they're worth to keep, to be honest. Because I think probably the only thing that keeps me interested in 40k at this point is Orcs. And Gene Stealer Cult, I guess, and it's there's actually quite a lot thinking about it, but it's mostly those.
Only thing that keeps me is Orcs and Needs. And Gene Stealer Cult, and also this.
Yeah, but the thing is that like that fucking twat biscuit, what's he called again? I keep forgetting his name. Alan Merritt got rid of Gene Stealer Cult for like fucking 6 editions. So like, there's not much of them to go around, and a lot of the new lore I don't like at all. So it's a mixed blessing for me. But I do think they're one of the coolest concepts that came out of 40k, even though they're just ripped from H.P. Lovecraft's writings, but they're still cool. Ian Pickstock, yeah, there we go. So I saying Ian Pickstock used to write for White Dwarf Journal. Slev is saying Ian had the idea of renaming all the shops to Warhammer 25 years ago. There was a lot of resistance and inertia at the time. Well, that's I think probably the reason that resistance has died down is that someone at GW's office was probably made aware of the Trade Descriptions Act, which might give them problems with the word game and work. So the Warhammer rebrand was a wise idea. But I think also, I think it kind of betrays the kind of strategy that they're going for. It shows you that they're really, really only interested. This is mean.
You being mean after having a few whiskeys, I would have never seen that coming.
Yeah, but the modern GW does on occasion. I mean, this is a little bit exaggerated, and even I know I'm being probably more mean than is true, but I'm still going to go with it because I like the analogy. But they do kind of remind me of those merchants and sellers that you find at seaside resorts who are very, very happy to rip you off because there's another idiot coming along later on that's going to give you money, and because it's a tourist destination, people are going to come in, get ripped off, regret it, never come back, but there'll be more every day.
It is. It's a churn. It is a churn.
There's no reason to not do the churn. And I think going with the term Warhammer, when the vast majority of the people who know nothing about Warhammer know the word Warhammer, kind of gives away what the store's for. Well, it might not give away what the entire strategy of Games Workshop's model is, because I do think they do on occasion think about their current audience. But
think about it from this context. I remember as a kid, anytime I talked about miniatures, Games Workshop, and whatever, my family would refer it to the Warhammer shop, the shop where you get your Warhammer. I think that's why they changed their name, is because that's what people.
Yeah,
it's like, what does little Davey like? He likes Warhammer. Oh, that's that Warhammer shop.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
I mean, there's sensible reasons for it, but I just find that quite pleasing. So yeah, I go with it.
Can't be having Games Workshop being sensible over here. Down with that sort of thing. Down with that sort of thing.
Is it Lulu that does reprints? Thank you, Si.
My vain attempts at non-metallic metal here are hilarious. I mean, is there any point in me even showing it to the bleeding camera? You can't. Yeah, it's not even in focus.
Yeah. Oh, I think if we'd been less pants to the wall, and literally we were deciding whether or not there was even going to be a live stream and who would be here minutes before 9 o'clock. Probably might have been more organised to start doing downward hobby videos at some point, but
I tried to, but it's not happening. It's not happening.
I don't bother with live streams anymore because I need the phone to look at the comments, because I very rarely work over there where the PC is. But yeah, keeps going. Oh, happy Father's Day to all the boys with all of the gits in the Ork community. Nice, yeah. Happy Father's Day. I've had a look. Let's have a look. Oh yeah, that's just Keith and Zen talking about stuff. Jay Hughes saying prices are crummy. When I started in 2019, grots were $15 a box. Now they're $25 a box. I mean, fucking hell, $10 increase. I mean, I don't fully understand the American dollar at all, but that's fucking ridiculous, frankly. It's just it just seems so naive of them to a degree, because I think they still think that people just like to just throw money at them all the time, and it does stink of a community that's kind of fallen out of touch to a degree. Although, as we know, there are people in this hobby who have big boy money, and they can all afford it. Good for them. But I mean, I work a pretty good care job. I work in the most professional outfit for healthcare in the country that I live in, the NHS, and I balk at those prices. So, I mean, I'm not a nurse or anything. I'm below nurse, but like, and certainly nowhere near doctor. But like, just looking at those prices, going fucking no thanks. Like,
I think that's the thing for me though, is like
serious overtime before I even considered that. Have to be on the bank for a while, picking up loads of extra shifts.
I think that is the problem though, is looking at even looking at Stone Boys, you need to buy 2 boxes to get a unit of 10, and that's like 60 something euros, and then you're looking at the amount of time you invest painting them up and doing them up and stuff like that, and how much is the unit. And then my problem with Warhammer now is I don't enjoy the I go you go system. I think it's a terrible system, like, you know what I mean?
I'm kind of attached to it just because every time you've experimented with a different system, I haven't enjoyed it. Like, the way that AOS works, I think, is probably the worst initiative system I think I've ever seen. And I think it really undermines the enjoyment of the game, and it is basically still I go, you go. But it's just I go, you go, but we randomly just fuck you over. And I've been told that I'm a poor player because I think that's a bad mechanic. To which I say, if, I have to... And I was told, like, what you need to do is you deploy assuming that you probably won't get first turn. And I'm just like, do you think in battles of history they did that?
No, nothing infuriates me more than a game of 40k where there's both sides are playing peekaboo from each other.
Yeah.
It's like, what?
Although now we have an odd, because that was one of my takeaways of 10th was, and I don't know how true of this was, I felt this was sort of true in 9th as well, is that there isn't really any escape. Like, it was especially true in 8th. Like, you can't really hide in modern 40k, and that comes with its mixture of blessings and a mixture of curses. But I do really think, like, you have to play so fast. No wonder people are saying, oh, it's so much easier to get multiple games in 40k these days. I just think, well...
No, it's not. It took us like 3.5 hours to play some of them, and we weren't playing slow. Fuck me. 40k takes forever to play now.
Well, if you haven't played before.
Dude, we played, 5 games in quick succession. By the last game, which was me and you, I was able to tell you the dice rolls, what I was rolling, and what equipment I was using, and what I needed to hit without looking at the data cards. Because we've wargamed before. And mine and your game took fucking forever to play.
Did it? I can't remember how long it took.
It took forever,
it felt
man.
Like it didn't take
I was
any
like,
time
mate,
at all.
I could get 2 games of fucking Battletech in the amount of time it's taken us. And people moan about Battletech taking forever. I'm like, what the fuck?
I mean, it takes long when I play Battletech, but that's because I always forget
you
what
just
how
need
the
me
rules
playing
work.
with you, you know what I mean? We'll fucking smash through it. What do I need to hit, Scar? 5. Just roll dice. You need 5s on that, 7s on that, 9s. Go.
Yeah.
No stopping you.
I love it.
Fuck me, 40k takes forever to play. And we were playing, mate, 1,000 points. Imagine if we were playing 1,500 or 2k. Fuck, we'd still be there. We'd still be playing now, like, fucking...
Ridiculous.
Oh, God.
So if I was saying the Snockings were really re-released are at least 30-year-old sculpts, possibly even Marauder minis before Citadel miniatures were a thing. They are very old, those Snotling sculpts. I still have some of the metal ones. They're very characterful. I'm glad they're still around. I'm just glad people can get them. But the prices they're charging for them are fucking ludicrous. Like, I looked at getting some of the old world stuff just so I could get my stocks back up of fantasy kits, because fantasy kits are great for pawns and orcs. But they're just so fucking pricey. It's ridiculous. Jay Hussein, are there any AOS old world kits that are a must-have for kit bashing orcs? Oh, well, that leads on quite nicely, doesn't it? Yes. I mean, the goblin kits are really good it's odd. If you buy the goblin kits on the whole, particularly the goblin kits of that era, the goblins are quite muscular compared to, say, your modern grot. And that does stand out a little bit. If you're doing a Rebel Grot army, though, they're a brilliant source for kit bash because you can absolutely make anything you'd want to make. And I've been using them for ages. I still have a stock left over. The Wolf Riders are a good one to look at because you get straddly legs that are very, very useful for all sorts of stuff, including even just making riggers for your vehicles. And you also still get the stand-up legs that you get in the regular regiment. So you get basically all the pause and stuff that you would need. And you can just clip off the old fantasy weapons and give them modern weapons. And when I used fantasy Night Goblins, which I think are the ones they're re-releasing. I'm not sure. I don't know if Night Goblins have come back or not. But they're the same kind of posing as the common goblins that you can definitely get for Old World. And those guys are very, very posable. Certainly compared to the ones that we get for Gretchen now, which mostly have fixed pose and maybe you can change the hands. And like I struggled with those, but that was just because 3D printing didn't exist and there weren't bits companies, because I'd started making these in third. That's how long ago I was bothering to make Orc stuff. Most of my army is still third ed vintage, although for the battle reports we're showing at the moment, most of that's pretty new. The only thing that disappoints me about the army that I'm showcasing there is there's not a lot of conversion on display. The new characters I did for it, they're very heavily converted, but then you've got regular boring ass kit versions of Grot tanks, and it's all Forge World stuff. Which is a shame, really. I regret the fact I never made a Grot Mega Tank from scratch, but I bought 3 of them before I even thought about doing it, and you can only take 3, so there's no point. But yeah, other things that are good. The regular Orc Regiment, pretty good, especially if you're doing Feral Orcs. If you're doing like Feral Orcs or Snakebite Orcs, they're a great start. I don't know if you can get the Araboys, but like the Orc Araboys. Can you see the head?
Microphone.
The head there. Can you see the head there? That looks just so much like the old Orc Bad Moon looking hoods that Bad Moons used to wear in like second ed Rogue Trader era, and like they go on boys great, but like fantasy Orc boys and 40k Orc boys kit bash together very, very well, to the extent that when you bought this Gargantuan Squigoth around about the 4th edition era, they gave you some Orc Boy sprues and some Orc Fantasy Boys sprues mixed in to make Feral Orc Boys to stick in your howdah. And you had enough to make 20 of them. And that was when it was like 200 quid. And, well, it's not that anymore, is it? And they took those sprues out because that's what
It's
you like.
twice the fucking price now, isn't it?
Twice the price, and they don't even include the plastic sprues that you got with it.
No, come on, zoom you bollocks. Fuck it, whatever.
But yeah, like basically everything. I think you could make a useful use for basically everything in there. The Pump Wagon has some great snortlings. I don't like the new character. I think the new character's stupid. The orc that's standing on the tactical rock with a shield on it. Yeah, I don't like that at all. I think I wouldn't be surprised. Well, yeah, that's definitely card because the face is far too symmetrical. It lacks the soul of the hand sculpted mages of the same era, so it sticks out like a sore thumb with a game that is 90% old style sculpts.
We've been experimenting.
Sticks out far too much. The Black Orcs.
I'm just gonna have to butt in over you because there is literally no way to get into a conversation with you otherwise.
Sorry.
I've been experimenting as well with other types of painting. So the airbrushing with the Storm Boys and doing all the jetpacks made me want to try different techniques. So I went down to the local model shop and the lads gave me a Spitfire that was on the scrap heap and had some like bits missing. So it's not got undercarriages and propellers. But trying out like spray techniques on the undercarriage, like pre-shading. And I was thinking that would be interesting to try on some Well, I mean, I want to do a flyer. I want to do a Borna bomber and do it the same sort of way as the Storm Boys eventually, but have it firing a missile into an explosion as its flight stand. You know, I mean, apparently flyers are absolutely dog shit in this edition, but I don't really care. I just want stuff to look cool. I'd be more likely to play it in with 4th Ed using the 5th Ed flyer rules or whatever. But yeah, I've been starting to experiment with that sort of thing. I'm just trying. I seem to have hit this weird sort of got the airbrush up and running and wanting to try different painting techniques, wanting to try non-metallic metals and try stuff that I'm not that I don't really bother with normally. Like I just camouflage patterns were the extent of painting for me, but I'm wanting to sort of push the envelope a bit and try
NMM, non-metal metal.
Non-metallic metal, yes.
NMM, as I know from the cool mini on updates.
I've tried some non-metallic metal on an Ork Boy axe here, but there's no way this camera is fucking looking at it for me. So,
airbrush is a good way to go if you want to do non-metallic metals, because the shading that you would need to do it well, an airbrush more or less does automatically, which is why a lot of the very good Rackham non-metallic metals that
I thought they used oil paints on them. A lot of the Rackham miniatures I understood were painted with oil paints.
They probably were, but they were also a lot of the metal shading they did was with airbrush. And the Rackham stuff that drove the metal craze that was basically dominated CMON. But as cool mini or not, back in the days when they weren't a corporate company that sold products, they were just a forum where people posted pictures of their miniatures. That's where that started. So long before they were making board games. And on that site, they had some really, really sort of cool stuff and a lot of the really good pictures from the and you could see them in the tutorials of the day. A matter of fact,
you must have a stash of Rackham miniatures, do you?
I have tutorials from the CMON days that I printed off in like...
That's cool mini or not for those of you who don't know what CMON is.
Yeah, sorry. But yeah, I've got a bunch of them here. And like, I printed them off in like the early noughties. Because I had a load of Rackham miniatures. I still sit on them, but none of them have got any paint on them. But like, look at the primitive printer. But any pictures of like, yeah. So,
what are we looking at, Dame? Is this basically like tutorials of how to paint stuff? Was it?
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Oh, hey, look at that. I actually did a decent fucking hold-up of an image.
Sweet.
But Rackham miniatures feature quite prominently, both in the tutorials, but in a lot of the stuff. Like, here's one of the ones I think was from Cadwallon, which is like their more time thing. And that's from back in the day. I don't even think you can still find these tutorials, by the way. I've got no idea.
Oh, you probably can, and I'm sure there's that many painting companies out now. We're in the it used to be hard to get good stuff like that back in the day, whereas now it's it's everywhere. Like I go down to the local model shop and there's a load of there's a pile of AK Interactive tutorial books. There's Vallejo ones. There's books everywhere for stuff. You can even get, what did they have? They had a book there that I was laughing at the idea of getting. Evergreen plastic card tutorial book. Like it looks like it was made about 20 years ago. You probably have it, yeah.
No, I do have a Woodland Scenics one.
Oh wait, the manual, I have that. I have the Woodland Scenics one as well. Just the weird little ring binder books.
They're really cool. I even have one of the old GW ones. That one.
How to paint Citadel miniatures. Do you know what? I actually quite liked. You know when they used to do the make your own terrain ones before they sold you terrain. I actually thought they were fun. Like.
Oh, you mean?
Oh, that one. That's the one. Yeah, I have that one. Yeah. That was out forever. I mean, that was made back in second ed, and it was out forever, man. It really was. Do you know what?
Because
You're going.
that's Nigel's. It is. It's Nigel. It's War Nigel. It's War Nigel. It's Nigel Stillman. Like one of my GW and general hobby heroes.
I was using this
Wrote
today. I was testing this bottle of water effects to see if it still worked. I bought this. I checked the label.
Hell.
I bought it back in 2005, and I just poured a bit in, and it still works impressively. There is a water effect in there. It still works. It still dries. So I'm like, there you go. The water effects. I'll tell you how much water effects I've ever done. That there's a whole bottle still here, pretty much, but it still works. I was well impressed. I
Nice.
did one pond, I think, once back in the day. I've no idea where it went. It was like an MDF, a bit of MDF about this size, and I built up the banks of it with sand, and then painted it green and made it darker in the middle, and then poured this on top. So I did do it at least once.
I think at some point we are probably, as Warboss, going to have to do a video talking about how to make terrain. Granted, mostly I'm thinking a rare opportunity for Clint to talk a lot.
Oh yeah, his stuff is great.
But it would be a great episode because it would, like, one of my main takeaways from the league, which like I didn't not enjoy any of the games. I enjoyed all the games, even the one with Dread, where Dread was a bit of a git. And that's me being nice. I've called him worse.
To his face, of course.
To his
folks.
face,
To his face, yeah.
But like, yeah, him taking the piss out of my memory, it wasn't the.
Now
nicest.
Bill Briggages, you'll be grand. Just you have
No, it's
something
fine.
in there for the next time you
It's fine.
meet. You know what I mean?
No, it was. I did enjoy the game with Dread, but it was particularly because the board we played on was so nice, and Dread stuff is painted very well.
It is,
He
yeah.
took a cheesy fucking bullshit list that I fucking despise, but it looked really nice.
What was his team again? Tracks? What was it? Was it Tracks? Something?
Bullshit.
Bullshit.
That's what it was.
Horse
That's what it
shite.
was.
Yes.
There were no tracks on his. There were no tracks on his out of the untouchable but shooting me all the time flash kits.
Yeah.
That were stock models. Come on, fucking Dread. Pull your fucking figure out and actually, make some better ones. I know you can. Right? And I know you're watching, you fucking git. But, yeah. But yeah, we got a lot of compliments for the terrain.
Oh,
The
yeah.
terrain
Clint's table
looked
was
amazing.
class. Steve-O did a great job
On the Adobe stuff.
on the
yeah.
Adobe stuff. Because I had so many Stone Boys and I'd left it so late to paint them all. Like, I was still painting miniatures up until the night before we started playing. And Steve-O and the lads were starting to put the finishing touches on the Adobe buildings.
Dread was an absolute machine with those scrap heaps, and they did look fucking nice.
Yeah,
like,
yeah, he did.
They did look
And
really good.
Oh, man, you want to see
You've got to compliment him when he does well, but it always feels bad to do it.
But like, I was surprised that they were in one piece. Do you remember like him reporting beforehand? Oh, I spray painted varnish on them.
I don't know.
And they rolled down this hill on me. I was like, what the fuck? Oh, and the piece of cardboard I had them on folded up on itself, and they went every. I'm like, oh, for fuck's sake.
Honestly, after seeing them, I'm genuinely impressed he didn't break them because they do look quite spindly, but they were quite resilient when we played. I don't think we broke anything. I don't think we broke any of the terrain, which was pleasing.
The Clint's scrapyard, there was like these signs, these little signs on sticks that you'd keep forgetting to see, and I kept fucking cracking me hand off of them. So there was one. I didn't break them, but it was a case.
Yeah, but
of,
it did. It sounds like more that it broke you rather than you broke it.
Yeah. I was like, just fucking.
Yeah.
Jay Hugh was asking, are there any must-have paints you guys recommend? Ooh,
say it with me, boys and girls. Army Painter, Rough Iron.
Yeah.
Vallejo Extra Opaques. I'm a broken record. Yeah.
It depends what you're painting. I like a combination of things. So the AK, like if you want to do like a decent rust, there's the AK rust primer.
Surface primer. There we go.
Yeah, surface primer. That's literally what I have in my hand. But there's also the base rust primer, which is more of a brown. Between the two of them, you can do I like to stipple over a black base, and you can do a decent rust effect, and you just throw on like a Vallejo model wash. I like the model washes. I like the Vallejo washes. They're really good. I've fallen down the AK rabbit hole. I actually, you advised, yeah, we were talking about Liquitex. I actually airbrush this stuff. This stuff is great to airbrush, like.
Or the Liquitex acrylic ink
Yeah.
is just great.
Yeah.
It's brilliant.
It's good stuff.
But like, use a heavy body acrylic, water it down with white ink rather than water, which I think is a tip I got from Roxy.
I think Roxy said it to you, yeah.
And the heavy body acrylic ink, the heavy body acrylic paint recommendation, I think, is from Juan Hidalgo. I think I remember. Juan Hidalgo is a really good YouTuber to find. He does great tutorials. He's moved quite heavily into, well, the last time I checked, he was very heavily doing all sorts of clever shit with the, what are those miracle paints that GW tries to sell? Contrasts. He does a lot of stuff with contrast, and presumably has experimented with speed paints as well, I suspect. I don't tend to do that way. I'm old school. I like the old acrylic layering techniques, and that's more or less what I do. I gravitate largely to Vallejo just because they've got the consistency of paint that I like. I don't really like thick paint. I got very terrible at painting when I used modern GW paints because the layers are too thin and the bases are too thick for me. And I forgot an awful lot. Like, I've never been the best painter, but I was doing pretty well with the old GW paint range. I have been looking at the Nostalgia 94 line and the Nostalgia 06 line. I think it's 06, I think. But they're basically designed to be just like the old GW paints that GW threw out and replaced with their maximum copyright range. And the old range, like, had the foundation paints. Was it called the foundation? Yeah, it was foundation, wasn't it?
Oh,
and the foundation
yeah,
paints were amazing.
Yeah,
they were some of the best paints I ever used. And their base paints weren't an adequate replacement. I think they were worse than the foundations.
The foundation paints were so packed in pigment that once you used them with a brush, you could hear the pigment grating on the bristles of the brush. Like that. They were
great.
Fucking.
They were a bit of a bastard for separating, mind. That was the issue.
They did separate, but they were great coverage. Like, they were great. You could water the absolute bejesus out of them, and they'd still cover great.
Oh yeah, they had great coverage. They were amazing.
Great. In fact,
like I said, I used a foundation paint to deal with that massive area of mold release on my Gargantuan Squiggoth that never went away, no matter how many times I scrubbed it with all sorts of solvents. It's the only reason the model doesn't look terrible.
Sadly, this Mordian blue has seen better days, but I think this is the last of my foundation paints.
I gave mine away and I regret it. They probably still wouldn't work, but
now this one looks like it's brown bread.
Oh fucking hell!
Looks like it's dyed.
Probably. GW paints don't keep too well because GW have never been good at making lids that don't ruin your paints, and I will not be convinced that is not.
Am I brave enough to stick a brush in there and see what happens?
Let's have a look. Going back to some of the old comments. Sai saying the old law was written by Bill King, the new law stuff isn't enough said. Yeah, well, I think Bill King is the best writer GW's ever had. Granted, I didn't read his Space Wolf series that is sometimes controversial among Space Wolf fans, but I really like Bill King's writing. His incidental lore writing for a lot of the early 40k, first edition, second edition, is just great. He wrote in the Warp Something Stirred, still has the best line about orcs that I encountered, which is that basically the orcs build the first Gargant, Gorkamork wakes up, and the Emperor on the Golden Throne, who is dead, opens his eyes, and more or less goes, oh shit. Which is the most epic thing that's ever happened in 40k, and GW haven't mentioned it since, presumably because they don't want it to be there. Why the fuck not? It's cool.
Production for the foundation paints, the date 22nd of the 4th, 2007. That'll tell you how long ago it was. Sadly, this one's dead. This one's dead. I might hold on to it for nostalgia's sake, though, just for the crack.
I'd want to go back to 2007. Fuck all this.
Ooh, what else have we got? We've got Balred. We've some of the washes.
Ooh.
This is 2000 and smudge. It's smudge. I can't see the date.
2000 smudge.
2000 and smudge. But Bal Red. still alive and kicking. Right. It is 2 minutes past the 11. We have had great crack. I have started to base up a lot of mechs. So like the likes of the King Crab that I have, I've started basing on. I have tried some non-metallic metal on this Ork boy, and it's not amazing, but it's a start. You know what I mean? So I've tried some non-metallic metal on the axe, just to start off. It's a load of greys and stuff like that. Like I said, not setting the world on fire, but hey, you have to start somewhere. You're gonna be terrible at a technique when you start it first, but eventually we'll get there. We might have some amazing looking ones. What about yourself, Tim? What did you get up to?
Yeah, I just did a bit of green stuff on that guy.
Nice.
Just really just a minimum amount of copy conversion work on this guy, really. I don't really have to do a lot. I might cover up the brain at the top because I haven't really decided what I'm doing with this guy. I think I'll run him as a Hive Tyrant in third.
Oh, why not? Yeah, that might be a good idea. Get a few third edition games in. Is that what's
Yeah,
on
I
the
do.
card? A few retro games, maybe. Maybe that's a topic for another video. What do you reckon at this stage?
Yeah,
Tim?
I mean, well, let's just put it this way. I'm not going to make... Well, you know what? Fuck it, right? I've been dancing around this too much and saying, oh, I'm going to come back with more videos. Watch this space on the Hobbygate channel, okay? Because I've decided where I'm going in the next 5 years. And
It's already booked his tickets. There's no stopping him, folks.
Yeah. I'm going to start doing videos again. Actually, no, I'm going to do videos again this week.
Just do it, Tim. Just don't talk about doing it. Just do it. I believe in you. I believe.
I've got a lot planned.
Let's talk about the planning more. Doing the planning. I believe in you. Right, folks. I hope you've all gotten a bit of your hobby done as well. And we'll catch you again soon. It's been great crack, but it is. Don't forget to drill your barrels from Scar.
And learn from my mistakes. I've been Dim. Hobbygate.
Bye.
Bye.